The trip to Indianapolis is secure. What's next for Iowa is to show up in style, meaning as division champs who have won 10 games and have defeated a rival on the way to a final trip to Indy, at least as Big Ten Western Division champions, with, of course, the Big Ten shakeup starting in 2024. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. This is our Hawkeyes live show that we present each and every Tuesday night. Appreciate you being here. Leave those comments and questions. Consider Super Chat contribution. Also, you can contribute to the channel and to the show through Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, MarkRogersTV, and certainly designate that this is for the Iowa show. Corey Bratta's on his way from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And we also will have John from Corn Nation on SB Nation to talk up the Nebraska side as the Huskers and the Hawkeyes get together, as they always do on Black Friday. It's a noon Eastern time kickoff, 11 a.m. where it counts on CBS. Iowa coming off that 15-13 win over Illinois. And Caleb Johnson got free with about 4.5 minutes left to play of a game in which the Hawkeyes trailed in the fourth quarter. Illinois put up a fight in Iowa City, and it was classic Iowa football in regards to the score, the nature of the win. Caleb Johnson with the touchdown again to ice it. Appreciate you all being here. And, of course, we will have post-game after Iowa-Nebraska. On the Nebraska side, for you Husker fans, we will have our Nebraska post-game at the Voice of College Football GBR with Justin Adams. And, of course, here with Corey and Coach Don Patterson after the game here and at the Iowa channel. Corey presents, of course, from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I'm sure Iowa fans, I'm sure you will be invested, I would think, in Saturday's Ohio State-Michigan game, because the winner will take on Iowa for the Big Ten championship. Smiles per gallon letting us know that John's hilarious. Absolutely love that man, despite being a skr. At Rogers, Brian does not lose. What's his record as an OC? Well, it depends on who it's compared to. He's lost a few, that's for sure. Lawrence, go Hawks. Let's finish the season out strong. Iowa fans remember, of course, just 1 year ago, having to win at home to win the division championship, having to play for the division championship against a 3-8 Nebraska team, not getting the job done, losing that game at home against a pretty bad Nebraska team. And here we are a year later. Nebraska is still not really a good football team. They're a little bit better than they were last year. Matt Rule has started to make strides with this program. The defense is strong. In terms of the defensive metrics, you could compare Nebraska and Iowa. You could compare these two teams offensively and defensively. They're rather comparable, although Nebraska statistically on offense is a better football team, although they turn the ball over way too much. And Iowa's been able to take care of the football, maybe not to Iowa standards, but been able to take care of the football better than the Huskers. And then the special teams difference sides on the Iowa side considerably. Add all that up together, and I think Iowa's a decidedly better football team. The results have reflected that throughout the season, not by a ton, because Iowa's not a better football team by anyone in the Big Ten by a ton, as it's presented by and determined by points each week. But certainly I was a bit surprised by the Vegas point spread, although I did explain that to somebody last night on our Big Ten live show. Here we go. We got Corey here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Corey, how's it going?
I feel like just a dude today, Mark. I feel like from the Hawkeye of the Storm.
Yeah,
any of my equipment. I'm just here on a couch talking to you. So
Hey, it's got a bit of a different look and feel to it.
yeah, that's who
Nothing
I
wrong
am.
with
So,
that. Still Corey, still the knowledge, still the personality. That's
um,
all we're looking for.
yeah, you got the personality part right. I don't know about the rest, but I haven't listened to the first 8 to 9 minutes of your show, but I'm guessing you have been talking a little bit about Indy, would be my guess, and the short week of prep. So there's a lot going on.
I just kind of laid it out as, of course, 1 year ago, Iowa needed to win this game, couldn't get the job done at home. Here we are 1 year later, and Nebraska is a little bit better football team. I think most of us would agree that Matt Rule should be a good hire. Has yet to prove that, but he's taken strides. They're playing a little bit better football. Still not a really good football team. Just kind of sizing up the offensive and defensive metrics. I don't think there's any question Iowa's a better defense, although statistically Nebraska's right there. And Nebraska is statistically a better offense, but they don't take care of the football. And that's where Iowa's, I think, special teams and turnover margin, taking care of the football, is where Iowa's really got a big advantage in this game.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a week ago. Part of that margin and that advantage, I guess, was eliminated, unfortunately, with the injury to Cooper DeJean. So we saw that on Saturday. I mean, his absence was noted. And I think, Illinois was going to attack through the air regardless. They're coming off of the heels of a almost historic performance from John Paddock against Indiana the week prior. So you knew they were going to throw the football a lot, but I think it was clear they were a lot more comfortable throwing the football on Saturday than they would have if number 3 had been out there. So that made a difference. I thought Deshaun Lee held his own. I thought he was fine. I thought Jamari Harris was fine. Like I made the comment to a couple people after that Cooper DeJean injury. I said, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And I mean that. They'll be fine. Now, when we have a discussion in a week about the Big Ten championship game, whether that's against Ohio State or Michigan, I may not say they'll be fine, but I wasn't going to say they were fine even if DeJean was playing. I mean, his absence makes a big difference for that game, I think. But as far as Nebraska, you're absolutely right. Iowa's a better team, should be able to go there and win. I would think they're going to have plenty of motivation. I mean, the idea that, well, they've got the West wrapped up. There were even people suggesting on our postgame show, why don't they just rest, the starters? Mark, I've not been in this position before. Like, I don't even. So I've never been in the position of resting starters for a regular season game because it means nothing. Like, first of all, Kirk's never going to do that. And what's sad about that comment is that we would have never said that in 2015. But why? What was the difference in 2015?
Well, there was a college football playoff berth on the line.
Exactly. And so people who are saying rest your starters are basically accepting to the fact that we have zero chance of the playoff. And that's probably true. I mean, we've had that discussion before about the likelihood that Iowa could somehow sneak their way into the playoff conversation. I mean, it's still possible. If chaos breaks loose last couple of weeks, Iowa somehow beats Ohio State or Michigan handily and they're 11-2 Big Ten champs, maybe they're at least in the conversation. I think it'd be very difficult to get in. Maybe the committee looks back at the Minnesota game, but yeah, they're not going to do that anyways. They want to win, and they should want to win because last year they should have won that game and been to Indy for what have been 3 straight. This would be 3 straight years had they won that game against Nebraska last year, in spite of the horrid offense. What's amazing about it, Mark, is these last 3 years have been. I mean, Iowa's almost been trademarked by how bad the offense is or has been. And each year they've probably been the best team in the West. I mean, last year you could argue Illinois or Purdue, both those teams were probably better, but Iowa beat Purdue and lost a tight one to Illinois. Should have beaten Nebraska at home. And the Cooper DeJean injury did not help them then. But it is ironic that Iowa's down Cooper DeJean again for this game. It's a different staff. Iowa got attacked through the air because of DeJean's absence with TJ Hall out there last year, Jamison Heinz. Now they have Deshaun Lee, who's a year older. So I anticipate they'll be ready. And I don't know how Rule's going to attack Iowa. I would think he'd be foolish not to look at some of what was successful last week for Illinois. Now, granted, the Illini only scored 13 points, But that's a pretty good output. And if you look at the yardage, they moved the ball for a good portion of that game better than most teams would against the Iowa team.
Unfortunately for Nebraska, they've had a pretty awful passing attack, and what they're going to get out of their quarterback play out of Heinrich Harburg, if they so choose to go with him, is going to be more runner than passer. And that's another distinction in this game between the two teams, is that while the offenses statistically are nondescript, I'll put it that way, Nebraska runs its quarterback when it's Harburg, and he runs pretty effectively, more so than certainly putting the ball in harm's way.
And that's why I think Iowa matches up better with Nebraska than they did against Illinois. And frankly, you go back to, I wouldn't have made this comparison a year ago, but you could argue Rutgers is kind of built similar to Nebraska. Really strong defense, mobile quarterback. It can be a little errant through the air. No pun intended there. So I would guess that Iowa, I'm not saying they're going to win 22-0 like they did against Rutgers, but matchup-wise, this is a favorable matchup. And they're going to have lots of ambition. Going to Lincoln and winning, silencing that crowd, I desperately want to be there on Friday. I don't know that I'll make it over. I was just in Omaha for Iowa Creighton here basketball a few days ago, so I don't know if I'll make it back over to Lincoln on Friday, but that's an environment. These next 2 weeks are going to be fun. Iowa fans need to lap this up and enjoy it, because it may not happen again for a while with the new changes of the Big Ten being able to play in the Big Ten championship game on the heels of a great Black Friday showing like this on the road.
We've got John from Corn Nation standing by here. We'll bring him on in just a second. Before we get to John, so you actually had some viewers to the show suggest rest the starters, risk the loss, and get to Indianapolis healthy. And I get that. Somebody could get hurt this week. It's football.
I don't get it, though.
No, I don't get it. No. I don't agree with it, but I understand their logic. But you want to be 10-2. You want to be playing your best football. You want to be in sync. You want to be in a flow, all of that. You're going to have an extra day on your competition, for one thing. And they're going to play a mega matchup for 4 quarters. So you would think it's going to take more out of the winner of that game than it is Iowa. And again, an additional day to rest up for the matchup.
Let me ask you this. And I know I bring this up all the time on this show. And I bring this up because I know there are no consequences on this show. But let me ask you this. Is there a chance that Iowa makes the playoff still? As of right now, is there any chance Mark Rogers can foresee in which Iowa makes the playoff? Reasonably.
Not reasonably. I could come up with a scenario. Yes.
Okay. But is it a reasonable scenario? Like, it could happen. It's not like
yes.
Alabama loses to Charleston. That's not what we're talking about. We're realistic losses.
Yeah, Power 5 teams losing Power 5 games to good opponents. Yes.
Kind of like what we would have had happen 2 years ago. Remember that?
Well, I remember that we both isolated from each other, not necessarily discussed it. We both came up with a similar scenario at the same time.
Yeah. And, so I guess what I'm saying is I'll be intrigued tonight. So I don't know if you know this, but you probably do because you're the voice of college football, right? But 2 weeks ago, Iowa was, I think 23rd in college football playoff rankings. After they beat Rutgers 22-0 at home, they got the biggest jump of anybody in the poll. You find that odd? That seems like a bit of an overreaction for
sure.
22-0 win over Rutgers.
Yeah. But we would have to look at the teams around them. I don't think it was determined. Sure. It wasn't in a vacuum that they should jump. There were obviously a lot of losses there.
But there are also I'm just saying there are other teams that didn't lose that didn't move up that much. That's what I'm saying. So the fact that they moved up more than anybody is an indication to me that part of that is based on how the committee views Iowa, not just a result of what's going on around them. I'm just curious tonight, they weren't obviously very impressive on Saturday. I didn't think they played well at all. Part of that, I think, was Cooper DeJean being down. He affects the game in so many ways, and they're really dinged up at so many spots right now. But they won the game 15-13 over an Illinois team that looked, they looked capable. So I guess what I'm curious about is tonight, what these rankings look like. You could probably project that better than I could because I don't even know who's ahead of Iowa.
This is where Iowa may be given more of a benefit of the doubt than other teams, in that we're so accustomed to them winning in the manner that they did this past Saturday. If
Yeah.
this is somebody else, pick your team. And if we stay in the Big Ten, it would be Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State would be the three. And they
Yeah.
beat Illinois 15-13. Oh, my word. That's a horrible win. That's terrible. How much are they going to drop? Are they going to take a big hit for that?
Here's your next segment that you need to have your guy cut out, Mark. Could the committee have become, over the last 2.5 years, could this committee have become numb to how Iowa plays? To where we used to think, man, they're going to have to win every game to overcome the lack of style points. But now it's, no, we're so numb to that we're not going to evaluate Iowa on that scale. And if we're not evaluating Iowa on that scale, it would be reasonable for the committee to say, you know what? This team should be 11-1. We're going to look at this call against Eugene, against Minnesota. If they're going to look at it that way, then the playoff conversation actually occurs. Here's what I would love to do. And I wish that we could have this type of access to the committee like ESPN gets. Nobody else would care, but I would love to ask the playoff chair person. I'd love to say, who is the chair, by the way, this year?
I don't remember.
No, it's not Gary Barta. It's not Gary Barta. But anyways, I would love to ask, I want to, how do you view that loss to Minnesota? Do you look at that any differently than any other loss? Do you know, because if they were able to sit there and maybe ESPN will actually pony up and do that, even though they won't because they don't care. But I would love to be able to know how they view that loss, because if the committee were able to go out and right now say, you know, that we feel like Iowa got treated unfairly at the end of that game. I mean, if I'm Kirk Ferentz, I know Kirk doesn't, maybe operate this way. I'd be driving that in my players and saying, guys, this is unprecedented. We are on the board 9-2, but they're looking at us as 10-1. We got a shot here, boys. Let's go play the best 2 weeks of football we've ever played in our lives and get to 12-1, quote unquote. And we're going to make this playoff. I mean, that's what I'd be. I know people are going to say you're crazy, but I'd love to be able to get the chairperson to actually answer that question. But the ESPN's not one to ask.
Well, there's no question that is talked about in that room.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely.
And I don't know what the time distribution of each team is and how much they're really weighing Iowa into their conversations at this point.
I guess that's what I'm saying, too. When you talk about style points, whether the style points matter as much for Iowa or they don't, the committee is not driven by any one metric. They're not looking. And I think they're closer to what you do, right? You're closer to what they do than to what the AP voters and coaches, and it's not even close, and it should be. I don't think it's a perfect formula or perfect process. But the point is, they could just say, we don't view that as a loss. They can do that. They have the power to do that. Who's stopping them? Who's stopping the committee from getting together and saying, we thought that was crap? Now, they probably won't do that, but I'm just saying it's not as insane. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm just the one who's insane. But I don't think it's as sane as we make it sound.
Yeah, it's not cut and dry. And I guarantee that they have 13 different viewpoints, of course, on how to treat that game.
Right.
Because even if that game in some people's minds is a win, again, if that's applied to if we're going to put Iowa in, they're not, but in an elite category this year, other teams would be taking a hit for that win. So even if Iowa was a 12-10, whatever they would have won, 17-12, you put that on Ohio State or Michigan's resume, and they're getting blasted for that game.
Right. But like you said, if that can be true while the committee's also looking at Iowa differently because of the reputation they've built with the offense and the defense and special teams and how unique they are, then we're having an open conversation.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. We'll never know. Now, I'm guessing, before we get to John here real quick, that I get a link to this teleconference. Do you get this link to this College Football Playoff Committee teleconference every week? And I've never listened to it.
So you can ask questions in the teleconference?
I don't know that I can ask questions.
Well,
Or
who can
if
ask
it's
questions?
if it's just a teleconference where whomever is asking questions and then we are just sent the link. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, please do.
John, how you doing tonight?
Oh my God. You know, I've been here for a while. I've been listening to Corey. He's a nice looking young man. He speaks well. It's just too bad there's something wrong with his mental processing.
Wow. Well,
Let's just start him with shots fired.
gloves are off, Mark.
Is it the corn consumption from the wrong state? Is that what
Yes.
plays with him
That's it. It's
across the
way
border?
too much pork or something, and not the
Okay.
bacon part that everybody likes.
Okay.
There's one big problem with this whole Iowa getting into the college football playoff, and that is that they are going to lose Friday to Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah, more shots fired.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give Matt Rule some credit. He was very complimentary in his press conference this week about Brian and Kirk, both of them.
He does that well.
Yeah, but I think it's genuine for those guys. I mean, I think Kirk, based on what I know, Kirk has a lot of respect for Matt Rule, a lot more respect than he had for Scott Frost, and I think probably deservedly so. Rule is an NFL guy. He complimented Brian's NFL history. By the way, Mark, real quick, can I just make a comment? This is totally unrelated to Iowa, but I saw that this morning that the Steelers let go of Matt Canada. Can you explain to me why he had that job? I looked at his resume. He has done nothing. Like, how do these people get these jobs? Matt Canada had one of the worst resumes I could ever imagine for an NFL coordinator position. Like,
well, I can't recite the offensive stats, but he was at Pitt. He was at LSU.
Yeah. Okay. He's gotten fired. He's gotten fired like from 2 or 3 of his jobs. And then he goes to Maryland and is the interim head coach for 1 year, and they're awful. Like, it's just amazing to me that he got that job.
It's because business guys know his name.
Well,
that's how you get an NFL job. So they have a list. They go through and like 8 names, and the guy who has all the money in the world goes, "Hey, I know that guy's name," and then they go, "Okay, we'll hire him." There you go.
An easy name to remember.
You're trying to make a logical sense of hiring and firing in the NFL with some of these teams that are run by people that just sit around and they have gobs of money. They don't know the price of eggs, and there you go. They just Matt Canada.
The reason I brought it up is because I was thinking, hey, there's an offensive mind apparently that's on the market for, Iowa to maybe look at. But then I'm looking at his resume and I'm like, oh, no, please. Like,
well, come on. It would be better than what you got, wouldn't it? I mean, you can't be jumping from really horrible to really good that fast.
Hey,
people would be shocked and
John,
they'd fall over dead.
That's some really deep Nebraska-like logic and reasoning ability. So thank you very much.
Excuse me. I've been covering Nebraska for 17 years now. There's no logic in the last 6 or 7 years. There's none. So if you're expecting that, God help you.
While we're talking about there not being logic involving Nebraska is the favorite in this game, I understand.
That's because there was too much money that went to the other side of the betting thing, and then they said, "Wait, we can't cover this," and then they just did the.
Are they like 1.5 point favorites, Mark?
That's what I saw.
I mean, so. I mean, Iowa would be favored theoretically on a neutral.
Yes.
Yeah,
but still.
Yeah. Well, Lincoln's a tough place to play. It's a rivalry. Those guys are going to be getting up for it. And correct me if I'm wrong, John. That will be a bowl playing game, right? They're 5 and 6.
It will be.
Yeah, so they need this game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just
as big. Plus, we won last year when we were like 3 and 8.
But to make a comparison, Maryland was a 3.5 point favorite at Nebraska.
Well, that's because they can score. I mean, let's face it. This Iowa-Nebraska game is going to come down to who actually can score 10 points.
It is probably the first to 10 in this one.
Yeah. Or 12, 13, probably 13 to 10 games, something like that.
Real quick, before we go back to this, this is the final thing I'll mention, then we'll go on. Matt Canada, real quick. NC State, 2013, hired at NC State, agreed to a 3-year contract at the end of 14. Following the 15 season, he's fired. At Pitt, he gets hired in 2016. he was named a finalist for the Royals Award, and then jumps to literally that same year jumps to LSU. So he had 1 year, one good year at Pitt, jumps to LSU. Then after literally 2 seasons at, 2 seasons at LSU, on January 5th, LSU fires him. Then he jumps over to Maryland, becomes the OC there. Shortly thereafter, before the next season even starts, DJ Durkin, that whole thing happens, right? He becomes the interim head coach, and they end up going 5-7. All right. And he's replaced by, let's see here. Who is he replaced by? Michael Locksley, right? And he was Scotty Montgomery replaced him as OC. So what did the Steelers do? In 2020, they hire him as a quarterbacks coach and OC. He's done absolutely nothing. He had basically, what I'm saying here is he had 1 good year at Pitt. I'm just confused as to
who you should be considering for an offensive coordinator is Scott Frost. He said this Nebraska guy.
That name has been tossed out there, John. And frankly, absolutely. People have tossed that out there. A lot of Iowa fans have tossed it out there. The problem is, do I think he could be a good offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach? Sure, maybe. I think he needs to get sober first. But I'll say this: I think here's the thing: he doesn't fit the Iowa mold. He doesn't fit the Iowa culture, and I don't think Kirk Ferentz likes him at all. And that's a problem. It'd be like saying, well, maybe PJ Fleck could become the next. I don't even know. Is he an offensive or defensive guy? Like Kirk can't stand PJ. Can't stand James Franklin. Could not stand Scott Frost. Those are on the hate list for Kirk.
And he's got quite a list of hated coaches in this conference.
Hold on, there are a lot of coaches. Just so a lot of coaches don't like Franklin in this conference. A lot of coaches did not like Frost. I don't know as much about Fleck, but my guess is there's a lot of coaches that don't like Fleck either, just because of how he comes off. I don't think he's got any problem with Locksley, or no, he doesn't have a problem with Bielema. He loved Pat Fitzgerald, had a lot of respect for D'Antonio. And I know he's got respect for Matt Rule.
What? You can't take him. You could take. I think Nebraska fans would be okay if you took our offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield, even though he spent the season working without 8 of his 11 starters from the beginning of the season.
Yeah, you're gonna hold him accountable for that mess?
No, I'm not. I think a lot of people do, though. I mean, I think he's made the most of a horrifying situation. And you guys
ever
earlier
recruited a quarterback for him. The quarterback situation is awful.
Yes, it is. But Chubba Purdy last week played like he was an NFL Pro Bowler. So he threw the ball, and he only threw it to the other team one time, and that was the exact last play of the game that we lost on a 4th and 28 or something.
Yeah.
Did I watch a different game?
He played. Listen, do you have high expectations for Deacon Hill?
I've never compared Deacon Hill to a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Well, part of the challenge of doing this show with you two guys is for me to say stuff and keep a straight face.
They had real quick, just to make clear, Nebraska had 17 points heading into overtime.
Yep.
And Chubba Purdy went 15 for 24 for $169, 1 touchdown, 1 pick with an 84 QBR. Those are Pro Bowl numbers.
Wait, I think that his quarterback rating ended up being 160 according to the game book.
Okay,
something like that. It was put it this way.
You're talking different languages.
Like I said, do you have high expectations for Deacon Hill?
What does that got to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? I'm just
used to watching horrifying quarterback play, and it's really anybody that walks in and does a decent job, you're suddenly like, oh my God, this man is a giant among quarterbacks. That's what we're looking at for Nebraska football. He played really well. He didn't turn the ball over. He only turned the ball over at the end of the game on a desperation pass. That's pretty good quarterback play by 2023 Nebraska terms. It's amazing.
Can I tell you what I'd be touting? You know what your proper response should have been to my claim there, John?
Okay.
Said, hey, he ran for over 100 yards as a college football quarterback.
That
would have been my response, because that is impressive. And that's how I think that's how Nebraska wins on Saturdays. They can figure out a way to let him loose, because that's something that Rutgers was not able to do. Here's a guy and Rutgers, who I think, how many yards did he have against Ohio State the week prior, Mark?
Rushing or passing?
Rushing yards. I was thinking he had quite a few, didn't he? I know he's averaging, I think, the 7th most rushing yards in the conference.
Manong guy had a big day against Ohio State. I don't know what Wimsatt did.
Yeah, but Wimsatt's a top 10 rusher among any positions in the conference. So that is really impressive, and Iowa shut that down. So I'm anxious to see. I haven't watched enough Nebraska since Jeff Sims got benched to even comment on how they're going to roll with the rotation there. But
well, it's going to be Chuba Purdy. Heinrich Harburg has a high ankle sprain, and nobody ever wants to see Jeff Sims in a Nebraska uniform again. So
what happened to Jeff Sims? Can I just add what happened there?
Well, he came in and he just immediately. I mean, the beginning of the year we played, he was terrible. I mean, he turned the ball over. He didn't turn the ball over in I don't know, impressive fashion. He turned it over in horrifying fashion.
John.
Yes.
All I heard about leading up to the season and through fall camp was how Jeff Sims might be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. And now he's not even on the depth chart anymore.
Well, he's on the depth chart. We only have 3 quarterbacks, and Heinrich Harburg is injured.
Oh, okay. So
Chuba Purdy has been injured. He has a groin issue, but last week he ran that didn't bother him. He's had a concussion problem earlier in the year. And then you have, Jeff Sims, the turnover machine, who has played it's like he has a timer, and you have to figure out when that timer is. And you go, he can play well for 15. No, this week it's 14 minutes. There's a turnover. No, there's 2 turnovers in a row. My God. So, yeah, I mean, we all heard that, yes, he's played well in practice, and then he walks on the field and he's played horrifying since the beginning of the year. I mean, we would have beat Minnesota if he wouldn't have turned the ball over.
That's a new one, Mark. Can you imagine being a fan of a team and your quarterback plays horrifying football? It's not even bad. It's actually horrifying.
It's horrifying.
It is.
It's horrifying.
Scared to death.
I would back that up.
This matchup Friday, the nation will be watching, and God help them, their eyes will be bleeding from probably really terrible offense.
It's about as bad with Jeff Sims as I've ever seen from a Power 5 quarterback.
It's interesting, but Mark, you were jumping on the bandwagon based on some of the. You were. I remember you said that. You were like, I think, I'm starting to get kind of convinced here. Like they convince you, like the Omaha, the World Herald, and all these little KITV or whatever these little networks over in Omaha. They are so delusional, man. They are so delusional that they'll begin to get their little their little weed.
They are not delusional. This is a thing. This is a psychological process that we call drinking the Kool-Aid that happens every Nebraska.
They're drinking something.
Kool-Aid was invented in Nebraska.
I get to clear my name on this one. I get to clear my name because when Jeff Sims first transferred, my thought was, well, Casey Thompson's a better quarterback than Jeff Sims. Because I saw Jeff Sims. I watched him play at Georgia Tech. He was a lower than mid-tier Power 5 quarterback. That's what he was at Georgia Tech. So I expected Casey Thompson to win the job. And then when he comes in and wins the job without even Casey Thompson basically playing, they don't even go to spring practice. Well, and then I also had somebody that I have on a regular basis who used to coach in the Big Ten, who makes the statement to me when Jeff Sims was signed that he's going to win the job over Casey Thompson. And I said, really? He said, you watch. He will win the job.
And he
did. And so then I was like, okay, all right.
So I think their fear before the season was that Casey Thompson wouldn't last the season. He went to USCF and he tore his knee up. So, I mean, that assessment they had right, but they could have brought him in for 2 games and beat Minnesota and maybe had a chance against Colorado. I think at that time the defense hadn't really come together. But Jeff Sims did turn the ball over to Colorado and was responsible for their first half points. So it's been pretty terrible. It's been horrifying. That is the word. Horrifying quarterback play. Maybe Chuba Purdy Friday plays decently and Nebraska gets a win out of this game. I don't know. That's the thing about the offense. I mean, both teams' offenses are pretty, one mistake and boom, it's all over.
The Purdy family has not been very successful against Iowa, as you probably know, John. Brock Purdy was 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 against the Hawks.
So they're due. Is that's what you're
Yes.
saying?
Sure.
See, this is why he's calling him a Pro Bowl quarterback, because
Yeah.
he's not going to do well against Iowa, but then he's going to go to the next level
Yeah.
and be just like his brother.
That's what Brock has done. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. He's in the MVP race. Real quick, Mark, what is the game that you're watching at 11 a.m. on Friday?
Oh, I'm watching Nebraska, Iowa.
Okay, so you're
Just
the only
strictly
other
based on tradition and what I like to see, and then I'm a
Okay.
Big Ten. Okay, I don't want to say this.
Is there
but
any other game
people
on?
peg me as a Big Ten guy. TCU's playing Oklahoma. There's a few
See?
other games.
Yeah,
It's the
Miami
only
lost this
game
game.
on.
I'll be watching 2 or 3 games at the same time, but this is the one I will make my
They
primary
have an
game.
offense.
And I will also most likely make this prediction. It reminds me of Miami and Louisville, and coming up on that prediction last week, that I don't separate these teams from a talent perspective, style of play. There are certain nuances to like Iowa's game that is significantly better than Nebraska, like punter, place kicker,
Yeah.
those sorts of things. But I don't see much difference. Nebraska's at home. That obviously hasn't been a home field advantage for quite some time, despite what they would like to tell you. But it'll come down
I'm not telling you that. I mean,
It's gonna come
the guy,
down
the
to
previous
me
guy
thinking,
just blew that to shreds.
Iowa is the team that does the right things to win, that I can trust, and Nebraska is the exact opposite. They
That's
will
what
do
they've
the
been-
things that will.
and that's what it's been for years, right? I mean, that's just what it's been for. I'm trying to think of the
8 or
since
9.
20 Yeah,
Probably
I mean,
Mike Riley and Scott Frost at least.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like every year, and oftentimes they'd be close, and you just knew every time. You're like, okay, well, Nebraska's gonna lose this one. And
We
and
are
you're right,
1 in
it's the
20.
exact
We are 1-29 in one score games. We are 0-4 this year, which means we're due. See how that works?
opposite. 1 in 29 in one score games since when?
I don't know. That's just something
It's not
everybody's
that
throwing
bad, is
around.
it?
Ugh.
Yeah, it's
It's
pretty
not
bad.
1 in 20.
I mean,
I
Scott,
got one
come
take.
on. 2 years ago, we were the best 3-9 team in the nation in
I got
history.
John. I got one word for you on that.
Oh.
Woof. Okay, woof.
Woof. Woof.
1 in 29 in one score games.
It's pretty horrifying.
Woof. By the
Yeah.
way, only other game that's worth watching would probably be Miami Boston College. But Mark, that Oklahoma TCU game is almost exact carbon copy of Iowa. You got a 9-2 team versus a 5-6 team that needs a win to get into the bowl game. So they're both going to be interesting games. I'd love to watch Oklahoma TCU. When's the last time we've seen a national runner-up not make a bowl game the next year?
Although Oklahoma has the incentive of needing to win to have a chance to get to the conference championship game.
Right.
That
No,
Iowa
Iowa's
does
already
not.
got it locked. You're right.
Yeah. Last national championship team, that would be did not get to a bowl game. Let me simmer on that one.
No idea.
Florida State? No? Okay.
My
um,
memory's bad. I only
They went
go
to the
forward. I
playoff the
don't go
next year.
Okay. What did they do the year after the playoff?
They were good for a few more years.
Okay.
Yeah, they went to 2 New Year's 6 bowl games. The next 2 follow, so they were for 4 years. I was going to say Auburn, but they went 7-5.
Underrated
They went
game
to
of
the
the
bowl
week, Mark. Underrated game of the week. Toledo taking on Central Michigan. Toledo is 10-1. Their one loss being to Illinois.
Yeah.
And if they win and they're 11-1, and then assuming they win the MAC and they're 12-1, are they in the New Year? Are they in the New Year's 6 then? Would they be the leading candidate for a
Tulane's 10-1 in a
So
better
how-
conference, better schedule.
So you think the committee would definitely put Tulane in?
If they can. Now, both teams are going to have to go to conference championship games and win.
Right.
Yeah.
And Tulane is ranked high. I mean, they're actually ranked, and Toledo's
Yeah.
not.
Their loss was to Ole Miss in a competitive game.
Yeah. And obviously the Illinois game was very competitive. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
old.
that was Illinois.
I understand, but let's see. Yeah, you're right. That's fair.
So what do you think's going to happen this Friday?
I think they're going to drive to Lincoln, and I think they're going to play football. And if Nebraska gets on the board, they're going to shoot those stupid fireworks or whatever they do after the first touchdown. They let all the balloons out, and they,
No,
That's
we
what they do.
don't
I just think it's the most
we
stupidest thing
we
ever.
don't do the balloon thing anymore. It's an environmental disaster or something. There's not enough helium in the world, but they don't do the balloons. They do shoot the fireworks, I think. I don't get down there a lot, but there. That's it. That's what all you're going to say about the game.
I think. I think. Well, do you know what the over under is for the game, John?
26.
Yeah. Well, I saw 26.5, but this is such unprecedented territory. Like we've never seen anything like these numbers that we're seeing. So I think they'll hit the over. This is the first time I'll say I think they'll hit the over because that's going so low, and Iowa has often hit the under, even when these numbers have been really low. But I think they'll hit the over. I don't know.
Think we could see 13-10?
I think 13-10 is a really good score. 12-10 is a better score.
13-10. I could see. I could see 13-10, but I think someone will find it. It seems like Nebraska always figures out a way to hand over a special teams touchdown or a defensive score of some sort. So that would be my guess.
We have been exceptional at turning the ball over.
These super chats. Let's pay attention to our viewers here. Erica, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Don't care what Vegas said. They said Iowa would win 7.5 games. True. Well, we've already surpassed that. Vegas knows nada, zilch, nothing.
Well, that was a stupid number from the get-go, Mark.
Yes, it was a stupid number, but Vegas does know a lot. Sorry, Erica. I would argue with you on that point about what Vegas knows and what they don't know. But you are correct. When it came to Iowa football this year, Corey knew it. I knew it. We talked about it. We were like, hey, Corey's not a betting man. I'm seldom a betting man, meaning I haven't laid down $1 on anything in close to 10 years. But we both said, take that to the bank. You are right, Erica.
I don't that one baffles me still.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that at all. Because Vegas is usually on.
Big Bolivar, thank you so much for the support. We appreciate your contribution. All right, John, we're going to make you feel at home here. We've got Nebraska fan Cole chiming in with, Corey, what worries you about this game? Well, with as much laughing as Corey's done, I don't think too much is worrying him.
I'll tell you what. Listen, here's what worries me about the game. 2 years ago, Iowa went to Lincoln, and what happened that week was the whole team got the flu. And I know there's a lot of stuff going around. There was even a rumor that there was maybe some illness going through the Iowa women's basketball team. This is the kind of the time of year where it's like, if something's going to happen crazy, it's going to be now. And that would be the last thing you want, because then obviously you're talking about guys maybe being under the weather for the Big Ten title game in a week. But I don't know if anything worries me other than, if somehow Iowa doesn't contain Purdy, then, we saw a year ago against Nebraska, since it was a year ago or 2 years ago. I get the years mixed up. I think it was 2 years against Nebraska. Right away, first drive, I think, of the game for Nebraska, they came right down the field and scored a touchdown. And Iowa kind of had a propensity in 2021 and in 2022 of giving up early touchdowns. They've really, I gave Phil Parker credit. He's figured out a way to kind of seal the deal on that and correct those errors or whatever was causing that. But I would say that'd be the one thing, just if Purdy's legs move the chains enough to where Iowa's defense, starts to get a little bit gassed. It's going to be colder. I know. I think these guys are fine playing in 30-degree weather. It's going to be colder, windier. The reason I seem so nonchalant about it, not that I'm trying to seem overconfident, I just don't know that a guy without the best arm in the world is going to be able to beat Iowa. Because to beat Iowa, to me, you have to take advantage of the fact that their best players on the sidelines. And I just don't know if Chubba Purdy can do that with Cooper DeJean on the sidelines. If he can, or if Harburg's healthy and he comes in, or Sims finds a way into the game and he starts playing well, like maybe. But if anything, those guys are going to hurt you on the ground. And I've just not seen Iowa fail to contain a mobile quarterback. And they played a number of mobile quarterbacks, not just Wimsatt, but they played, Rocco Becht is fairly mobile. They kept him in check against Iowa State in Ames.
I needed you last night during the Big Ten show. I was asked if Iowa has faced a mobile quarterback to the level of Heinrich Harburg. And I mentioned Gavin Wimsatt. He was the first one I mentioned. But Harburg, there's more put on him as a running quarterback in terms of producing offense than any quarterback that Iowa's faced this year.
Yeah, but he's likely not going to play. I don't think he could. I think he's too beat up to play at all.
But Chubba Purdy ran for over 100 yards last week. So
yeah, and he looked really good. He had some motor to him, and
Yeah, I mean,
I think if he's honestly, I think if Chubba Purdy's going to beat Iowa, it's going to be through the air. Yeah, and the unfortunate thing about that is we're down like I don't know what 3 of our four best receivers, so we're going to have to use some young guys and probably play action.
Is Malachi Coleman healthy?
Malachi Coleman is healthy. Jaden Doss, I think, has some promise as a receiver that's going to be, fast enough to outrun most defensive backs. And, if Iowa's missing Cooper DeJean, I think that is a big issue. I think I'll say something nice about Iowa, and I rarely do this. I think he's one of the top 5 players in the country. I do. I think he's amazing. If you want to talk about a guy who's going to be a future Hall of Famer, that's that guy, because he just makes things happen. And, last year he went out of the game and Trey Palmer lit up the scoreboard, lit up the air through the air. And, that's because he had Casey Thompson to throw the ball up in the air and him to run under it. So
I'll agree with you on one thing, John. I've been watching Iowa football my whole life. Cooper DeJean is one of the greatest players I've seen wear an Iowa uniform. And there have been some great ones Jack Campbell just last year. Cooper DeJean's one of the greatest I've ever seen. Just his ability to change the game, but he's not playing. So, and by the way, real quick, Hudson Card, kind of known as to be a mobile guy, completely contained him as well, Mark. So, and Cooper Lagasse, he's mobile, but Utah State's nothing to, but every test they've had against a mobile quarterback so far this year, they have not had issues containing guys with legs.
John has made the prediction that Cooper DeJean will be a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
Him and Chubba Purdy. There you go, man.
He's not even in the league yet, and he's already a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're going to be wrong. I'm just underlining that, just clarifying.
Just real quick, I was having a conversation with someone today just about what Iowa's doing with defensive backs. And we've talked about it before, Mark. You and I have had conversations about who's tight end you right now. With TJ Hawkinson, with Sam Laporta, with Noah Fant, with George Kittle, I think it's obvious right now Iowa is. But the DB conversation, I know there's some schools that have some great DBs, but it is incredible what Phil Parker has been able to sustain over the years. Last I checked, Geno Stone was leading the league in interceptions this year. He was kind of, I don't even know where he got drafted by Baltimore. Wasn't real high. And he's turned into a really solid DB at the next level. Amani Hooker's carved himself a nice career. Obviously, Desmond King, converted corner, played a lot of safety in the league. Micah Hyde, one of the better DBs of this generation. And Cooper DeJean is going to be right there behind him. So, the interesting thing, the unique thing last year about the game against Nebraska, John, and this, Cooper was healthy heading into the game. He gets a concussion during the game. And, you cannot simulate game experience. Right. And, guys like Jamison Heinz, TJ Hall, they really had no game experience. TJ, I think, played a little bit earlier in the year, but those guys really didn't play. So the difference is they've known this now for a while. And Deshaun Lee played on Saturday and played just fine. He played the first 2 weeks of the season when Jamari Harris was out due to a betting suspension. So, if assuming Harris and Lee are both healthy, they'll be fine. Quinn Schulte, Xavier Wamp on the back end at safety, they're both fine. Sebastian Castro's had a career year. So, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit overconfident. The bottom line is, I won't be shocked when Nebraska wins because, Mark, how could you ever say you're going to be shocked if the other team wins when your team wins by one score almost every week? Illinois almost beat Iowa last week, 15-13, but Iowa found a way, as they seemingly always do. And you could argue that, you go back and this, John, you go back and look through Iowa's schedule this year. I know the Cooper DeJean thing against Minnesota happened. Right. And I will go to the grave saying I think that was criminal and I think it was stupid. But the bottom line is, you don't count that against Iowa. Won a one-score game against Iowa State. won a 1-score game against Purdue, won a 10-point game against Michigan State, but it was due to a Cooper DeJean heroic play at the end of that game as well. Again, the Minnesota game, won a 1-score game against Northwestern, won a 1-score game against Illinois. This is what they do week in and week out. So I'm just like, I expect them to go there and probably win a 1-score game.
Yeah, Nebraska loses 1-score games. That's what we do.
There you go, Mark.
That's the expectation. But,
Exactly.
I'm going to go with rivalry game. And, we at 3-8, we beat you last year. And this game particularly, all it takes is one play. And I think that's the thing.
Well, that is
who's going to make that
game
play?
that Iowa plays that could come back and bite them at some point would be,
if I had to take one
only
guy
one
off the entire Iowa team that I think is the biggest threat, it's their punter.
Yeah, I agree. He's the most indispensable player right now left. 100%.
Yeah. Which our punter last week played terrible against Wisconsin, and it was a big factor in the game. And he has been inconsistent. And, we're all looking for him maybe it's because he was on the road last week and he's young. That's it. Well,
what you just said is absolutely right, John. And I think, I haven't fully appreciated that until now, maybe. And that's too bad because, I've enjoyed Tory Taylor's career, but he's been here since 2020. And people have to realize he's an NFL punter. All right. I believe he's going to punt in the league. And I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer or a Pro Bowler. He's an NFL punter. But here's the other thing about it. He is more important to what Iowa does than any other punter is to their respective team. And it's not even close. Right. When you see Iowa like this last week, I think I deleted it, but I always take my notes on my phone during the game to talk it over with Coach Patterson afterwards. But I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can find. Maybe I didn't delete it.
And while you're looking for that, Corey, I think you alluded to, but we didn't get into the discussion, one of the most underrated portions of Cooper DeJean's game, which people that are aware are that he's a great defensive back and then he's a great punt returner. But as a gunner, they missed him having that ball awareness that he has to track the ball. They have fast enough guys.
I know.
But they botched like 2 or 3 balls inside the 5-yard line.
The one, Cohen Intringer, who's a second-year guy, runs down the field, number 4, and all he had to do, and I know it's an art, believe me, it's that's why not everybody can do it, but bat the ball back. Instead, he grabbed the ball and rolled into the end zone with it, and I'm like, what are you doing? And again, perfect example of this. A week ago, 3rd and 1, John, 3rd and 1. They, instead of taking a shot and treating it like a waste down, because Brian Ferentz says that 4th and 1 is never a waste down, or 3rd and 1 is never a waste down in his opinion. 3rd and 1, they run for nothing. It's 4th and 1. What do they do on 4th and 1 at midfield? They punt, of course. I don't think there's even any question. We're going to punt. Mark, we get to punt from midfield. We get to give the ball to our best player. So Tory Taylor punts. What happens? 3 plays later? Safety. Right. That's what it is, Mark. Yeah. This is what they do. It's just, it's incredible.
They lead the nation in safeties.
But I made the comment when that happened. I'm like, God, this is so painful to watch. And then it's like, you watch 3 plays later and it's like, oh, there's a safety. And it's like, they flash a camera over to Kirk and it's just, you can almost see the wheels turning. Reinforcement. It's like,
how are they going to actually pick an offensive coordinator though? That's a whole philosophy. It's like you're going to have to hire a guy that they could hire me, for God's sake. And then I could be bad, and then they'd still win games. Is that what the deal is?
Maybe
they should hire Matt Canada because he sucks.
Yeah, I think that's a whole different conversation. But I think someone like John Budmeyer is probably the easy candidate because he would fit into that mold. But no, Tory Taylor and Cooper DeJean, most important players in this team. And I made the mistake prior to the season saying that Cade McNamara was the most important player. Maybe, but I think Cooper DeJean and Tory Taylor were right there even then. Right. Certainly now, Tory Taylor is the most important player. And I think Drew Stevens, he's had a couple of kind of off weeks to some regards. He had an extra point block this past week, missed a 52, 53-yarder this last week, which he's been perfect from 50+. So I guarantee you, he's known his predecessors and the success they've had in this rivalry with last-minute kicks. He's got ice water in his veins. He's looking for a bounce-back week. So I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to a Drew Stevens kick.
I just want to make sure I get in one question for each one of you before we have to wrap it up. So my question for John, plus we need to get to these super chats. So my question for you, John, is obviously 5 and 6 means that this is the final opportunity to get to a bowl game, have the shot at a winning season at 7 and 6, get the extra practices for a new coaching staff and a second-year head coach at that point. But then just the vibe, the attitude, we finally got to postseason play for the first time since 2016. It's
a huge game.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. For all those reasons, plus it's a rivalry game.
And you got Iowa fans. You got Iowa fans saying, "Should we rest our starters?" I mean, believe me, the players and the coaches aren't approaching it that way, John. But some people are just so fixated on, "Hey, we're in the Big Ten championship game. Keep our guys that we have left healthy." And I don't agree with that. But there are going to be some people that just say, "Hey, as long as we're playing in Indy, that's fine."
I think the key to this game is that it's in home. And I think we have so many young players that are playing. They went to Wisconsin. We haven't won in Wisconsin since 1966. I mean, granted, we didn't play them a lot over the years until we got into the Big Ten, but they've kind of owned us. And I think if that game's in Nebraska, we win it. I don't think our younger players get as rattled as much, and that includes our true freshman field goal kicker, who I think he missed 2. He missed a long one. Well, he didn't miss 2. He missed. We went for a 4th and 2 that we didn't get. We were beating the hell out of Wisconsin in the first quarter. The offense was clicking. Everything was going well till we had a 4th and 2, and they took momentum back. And then, they scored the next 17. We tied it with 3. It went to overtime. I hate overtime on the road. I don't understand why Matt Rule did that, but there you go. I said a long time ago at the beginning of the year, who wins the Big Ten West is the team that figures it out. Who out they are. I mean, Iowa's obviously had Kirk Ferentz around for like 648 years.
You answered your own question before they ever snapped the football the first week of the season.
Yeah, I'm not giving Iowa that much credit for
Iowa knows who they are.
So
they already had it figured out.
Well, but their offense. I thought they would have to generate way more offense. I mean, let's be honest. Who saw the Big Ten West as being this god-awful across the board?
Yeah, but John, I mean, I picked Iowa to win the Big Ten West preseason.
But you would. You're an Iowa guy.
Mark.
Come on.
He's called it straight before he's went in other directions.
Yeah, I don't. I've actually only picked Iowa to win the Big Ten championship game, I think, 2 years in the last 5, and they've won the Big Ten championship. The West championship. I mean, I've only picked them to win the West 2 years, and they've won the West both of those years.
Well, I picked Iowa to win the Big Ten West too. What? So that's not any shock about that. I didn't like it. But again, Kirk Ferentz has been there 548 years. How many, decades? He's been there 4 lifetimes of a regular human being. And all the other coaches are like, how many first-year coaches do we have? And then you have PJ Fleck, who I don't know what the hell that guy's doing half the time. Northwestern gets all blown up by whatever they're doing up there.
Mark, can you please read Thomas Hahn's comment? I know you got Lemansky's super chat, but can you please put the comment from Thomas on the screen and read it to our audience, please?
Thomas states here, Corey, what do you even know about football? Being a news reporter and a podcast host, your only knowledge is from Don and Mark. Give me a freaking break. Iowa 20, Nebraska 6. Is this necessary, Thomas? Come on.
Oh, he shows up on a lot. I've seen his name on, and then what he's got. He updated. He put a new comment in there. Mark, you want to?
I don't think we've had Thomas here, have we?
I think he's been here. Okay. He's definitely showed up on the live shows a number of times.
Corey is not an Iowa guy.
Not an Iowa guy, Mark. Not an Iowa guy.
Well, since it's my first time meeting you, I'm completely confused.
See,
you're not an Iowa guy? You're not an Iowa guy?
Apparently not. But he goes. I think people like Thomas, they just what they expect is for somebody to come on and just shower Iowa with praise, and I don't do that. So
you did pick this team to go 10-2, correct?
Correct. I picked this team to go 10-2.
You're on it.
Well, you'll only be one off after Friday.
Well,
Yeah,
then
maybe.
I'll be correct because I
No,
said 9-3 preseason.
I'll still be right because I'll say that they actually won the Minnesota game.
Oh,
right.
wow.
Okay, that was my question for John. Let me hit these super chats, and then I've got one question for Corey, and then I am good. But we got, Lemansky. Lemansky. Now, I know that Lemansky's here all the time. Thank you for that, Lemansky. We appreciate your support. If on a cattle drive and driving them through Nebraska, trust a few Huskers, but brand your cattle.
Would you like an actual comment on that?
Sure.
You know, I do a lot of history, or I'm going to be doing a lot more history videos. I've started a history video channel, things like that. There is a book that's in the public domain called The History of the Western Nebraska. And it's 600 and some pages. It was published in like 1895, 1880. And it details a lot because they used to drive the cattle up from Texas into North Platte, Nebraska, where they put them on a train. And one of my favorite stories from this book is about how the cattle, the guys that drove the cattle, they go to basically a brothel that's around North Platte, Nebraska, and they have a big party. And one of the cowboys is drunk and he shoots himself to death. So what do? They take him and they put him over in the corner. And then throughout the night, another couple cowboys have a confrontation, and they shoot. One of them shoots the other one to death, and they throw him in the corner. And then again, another drunk cowboy accidentally shoots it. By the time the night is over, 3 of them are laying in the corner. They're carried to Boot Hill in the morning and buried. And that's so, I trust a few Huskers, but brand your cattle. It's probably not bad advice.
Wow. I did pick the right guess for this show, did I not?
What's our viewership at now, Mark?
We're at 173.
Are we simulcasting on Nebraska's network too?
No, I forgot to do that. We should have.
Oh.
I will
Wait,
have
wait,
to.
We're only on the Iowa channel. We still got 173 people on here after that story about the history of Nebraska from the 1800s. Yikes.
We dropped 3.
There's some rough stories in there, man.
And Tim wants to know why you're not wearing Hawkeye clothing, Mark. How dare you? How dare you? That's what Tim says in the chat. How dare you?
This could be interpreted and seen as Hawkeye clothing, could it not? My black? No?
I had someone, Lemansky. Did I tell you that good old Lemansky jumped on? Has he ever jumped on camera with you before?
I don't believe so, no.
He jumped on camera the other day on my show.
Nice.
And showed this little helmet he said he was going to send to you. It was a Hawkeye helmet, but I'm pretty sure it was smaller than the ones you have on that shelf. So I'm like,
these are small.
Yeah, but I think it was smaller. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe
they have to line up with the rest of them. They're all Shut is the brand, and that's what they are. I've not received any of these for like a year and a half, though.
Well, we got to get.
I haven't. No, I'm meaning that I have said I don't want any more helmets. We may do that in the future. We'll see. Anyway, and then I've got one question for Corey. So Erica, I almost felt bad for Hudson Card after our game with him. He looked really hurt a few times, and at one point he looked like he was in intense pain.
Well, he sacked him 6 times, and part of that was just tremendous coverage down the field. But that's what I'd be concerned about, again, if I'm Nebraska fans looking back at that tape against Purdue, is he was completely neutralized on the ground.
I'm now a little upset that I forgot to simulcast this show, as we typically, that's the MO here at the Voice of College Football when we've got 2 channels playing.
Premiere.
Yeah, we can do that. Very nice. I'll do that. So, Corey, my question for you, since we may not get a chance to talk before we know who Iowa will play in the Big Ten championship game, you have been telling me for a few weeks that you are going to decide who you would rather face.
Well, I think I told you this prior to the Cooper DeJean injury. It was pretty straightforward to me. I would rather face Ohio State.
Yeah,
because I think there's anybody that could guard Marvin Harrison in an isolated situation. I think it would be Cooper DeJean. Without Cooper DeJean, I might go Michigan. I mean, you and I both know neither. It's at least lesser of two evils. I don't think either one Iowa matches up particularly well against. But I would have been intrigued to see Ohio State against Iowa with Cooper DeJean, because I would have loved to have seen them Harvard-Harrison matchup. We saw a little bit of that a year ago, but I think DeJean is that much better this year. And, Riley Moss got isolated up with him at times last year. So that would have been an interesting one to watch.
It should be fascinating, and maybe the highest rated regular season college football game that we've seen in I don't know how long.
Why?
The game? You're talking about Ohio State, Michigan, or the Big
Well, it
Ten
was last
championship?
year. I don't know. That rating for that game was the highest in like 15 years or something like that. And this one will probably surpass that.
Yeah. I thought you were
think
talking
with
about
all the controversy included.
Everybody's going to watch to see if there's going to be a throwdown at the end between Day and Harburg. You know what I mean? That's what I'm looking
he's
for.
Not allowed to go to the game and won't be in the stadium.
He'll be coming in off the, just running in. Somebody will go, oh, it's Harburg. He's on the field.
Yeah, suspension's
what
going
was
to be over.
Michigan fans rushed the field last week when they were told to stay off the field. Jim Harburg could do that.
Okay. Well, I will not be holding my breath to witness that. But we do have a college football playoff watch party to check out the rankings that come up here on ESPN at 7:00 Eastern time. So join us for that. Give me a call. John, we appreciate you being here. Certainly let folks know where they can find you and everything that you've got going on.
Well, cornnation.com is my SB Nation Nebraska site. Corn Nation is the channel on YouTube. I've started the history thing, hardcore college football history. Corn Nation on Twitter, Corn Nation on Facebook. I mean, come on, who else would pick this name, for God's sake? It was the name that I figured out at the time that would do two things. Not get me sued by Nebraska, because we had a megalomaniac for an athletic director when I started in 2006. And number two, remind me to never take this stuff so serious that it, destroys my life, which has been, difficult at times. Given what we've gone through over the last 9 years.
John, and you don't take it too seriously. Therefore, I don't know if you're representative of the Nebraska fan base, but
I am representative of the lighter side, I hope.
Okay.
There's probably a lot of people that would say, like Corey, that I'm not a real Nebraska guy because I try to be pretty blunt about what we're doing. I don't really see us having a good chance. I'd put it probably 35% of us beating Iowa Friday because of the whole one score thing. They know that. We don't know that. We have to learn that. But I'm still kind of a homer. And as Corey pointed out, we're all kind of delusional with the whole drinking the Kool-Aid thing.
Corey, do you have anything that we should look out for before we see you after the ball game?
There's constant stuff coming out, and we got post-game coverage out the wazoo this month. I mean, with men's basketball, women's basketball, we've got, men's basketball, they'll have the first game down in San Diego on Thursday at 2 against Oklahoma. So we'll have post-game coverage after that. I think that game's on Fox or FS1. I think it's actually on Fox. So post-game coverage Thursday. I don't even know how we're going to handle post-game coverage Friday, because you've got football, men's basketball, and women's basketball all on the same day, like within the same small period of time. So I don't know how we're going to do post-game coverage for that, but we'll be here for that. And then Saturday, Saturday, I'm trying to think now. The women do play Saturday, so we'll probably have post-game coverage there as well. So it's just busy time.
I will have a show at 7:30 this evening on our channel with Scott Docterman of The Athletic, and I will be beating him up about him trolling Nebraska fans all the time on Twitter. And I think he does a good job of that with Iowa fans too. So, Iowa fans can go over there and beat him up too.
I feel bad for you, Corey. In the middle of a college football rivalry Saturday, you're going to be relegated to women's basketball and women's basketball post-game.
They have that Caitlin Clark thing going on.
That's still around. She didn't go to the WNBA?
No.
Oh,
my good
God.
Mark,
oh, my God.
Mark,
What? I assumed she was going to the WNBA.
Stop it.
Yeah.
She was on. She was on the Monday Night Football Manning cast last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
You act like she doesn't exist.
I truly had no idea where she was. I assumed, for as good as she is, that she was off to the WNBA. That's what
No, she's not.
I just assumed. I didn't
She
give it
still
any.
has to raise the bar for women's sport across the
Okay,
board.
I didn't give it any thought between the last time we talked about Caitlin Clark, roughly 9 months ago or whenever it was, 6 months ago during March Madness, and today. So I just assumed, okay, she must no longer be part of Iowa basketball.
So Saturday, or you don't watch the Manning cast then?
I have in the past. Yeah, it's fun.
Okay,
I like it.
I didn't watch it last night. I just know she was on there. But yeah, for you were talking about the schedule. So they play. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, okay. I have this all turned around. I'm sorry. They play Friday in the first round of the Gulf Coast Showcase. Then they do play Saturday, either Delaware or Florida Gulf Coast. I don't know what time that will be. And then they do play again Sunday. so actually, there's post game coverage Thursday, and then like a triple whammy Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and yeah, we'll go from. That's what we've had the last 2 weekends, Mark. We've had women's basketball Thursday. We've had basketball games each of the last 2 Fridays from the men. We've got football games. We had football games Saturday, and then we had a women's basketball Sunday again. So I mean, it's basically every day. I'm almost not really putting out other content out right now because it's all live streams. So
I guess I really can't shake my head at that, considering that Saturday I should probably do a pregame because I think people will show up for that, and then a halftime hit, and then postgame. I usually allow all of our team channel folks to do the postgame, but it's Ohio State and Michigan, and that drives my channels pretty well. So I think I will be handling postgame.
That game should be a blast. It really should. Twitter should be so fun to be on, and being an impartial bystander, jabbing both Buckeyes and the Weasels as they go throughout their tantrums of whatever happened. I hope there's bad calls in that game galore.
It's getting nastier than I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild.
Bad.
This whole season has been probably the dumbest college football season in history, and that is, as dumb as the sport is, that's saying a lot.
If somebody wants to see, Steve Dace was on yesterday, so check that out. That was entertaining for many because he was in fine form. All right, folks.
Mark, I have to get going.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you being
here. Thank you, guys. Take care,
you.
Corey. Nice meeting you.
Thanks, John.
All right, Corey, we come to the end of the line. You're going to be busy, so certainly enjoy your Thanksgiving and as much as you can through the rest of the holiday.
Lots of sports the week ahead, I know, for everybody. So, busy weekend for you, obviously, with the game of the year. I can't relate to what it's like being an Ohio State fan or a Michigan fan this week, but have fun. And why would you not do the post-game show Saturday? You were not going to.
We've got an Ohio State channel, and those Ohio State guys do that. And we've got the Michigan channel with John D'Adamo, and he does the post-game on the Michigan.
I have respect for everybody that you have working for you, but you need to be doing that post-game show Saturday.
Yeah, well, that's what I heard after last year when I didn't.
Oh, you didn't do it after the game last year?
Nope.
Okay.
I did my thing. I watched 2 games. I did my instant analysis videos, and then I'm on late night with a call-in show. Yeah, but yes, I believe that we're going to have to go live after the ball game.
I'll be watching, Mark.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll be back, of course, with a Big Ten Championship preview next Tuesday.